lot. HTTP return code 413 error.
Forbidden somehow. Forbidden somehow. I don't know what.
Okay, let me give you a hint. That's what she said.
I have a headache.
That's not much of a hint, though, is it? Request entity too large.
Oh.
Okay.
And that's why I've never gotten that. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Let's not go there.
You did first.
Here we are. Yeah, I often do. We got a bunch of great people with us. Regular Andy Smith. Where's James Bodie, by the way? We need to get him, wake him up. Bob Bowles is with us. Life Madison. That's life. What you gonna do about it? Randall Schwartz, and on my extreme right, or left, I'm not sure which, is Russell Bryant. Hey, Russell. Long time no see. He's waving. So now we should be live on vuc.me/live. And Life looked up the code. Randall, we want to talk about it. You're in a hurry, so I'll get to you first. Who controls the internet? As far as who owns the internet, by the way, that's another interesting question.
Yeah.
All the infrastructure is owned by mostly private companies, at least in the United States. Who controls the internet, in your opinion? What do you have to say about that?
I think you have to look back at who controls the domain name system as the answer to that. Because if you control the mapping of google.com to its IP address, you basically run the internet. At that point, it'd be ICANN's, because ICANN's pretty much been put in charge of that level of managing the namespaces on all the different dimensions, like who maps out the IP addresses, who maps out the domain names and allows top-level domains, things like that. Obviously, a lot of that's delegated. So for, say, the UK, ICANN has delegated anything that ends in .uk to some entity in the UK, which I'm not familiar, but somebody there. But I think as long as you...
Nominate, maybe? Nominate, I think it is.
Yeah, okay, whoever it is. Every country's got their own sort of top-level manager that takes care of their particular country code, but you know, whoever controls .com, .org, .info, you know, that's really who runs the internet, and right now that's ICANN. And that's why I think this ITC meeting coming up, after reading the article about that, they have no enforcement policy whatsoever. They have no power to make ICANN do anything. So even if people start making decisions and deals, it's not going to matter, because ICANN will just say, no, we run it. There's nothing there. Now, we could have the U.S. legislature come in after having made some deal thinking that ITU is important, make some changes, but that would be a much slower process, and it's nothing that's going to be decided in Dubai. It's going to be something that's going to take months and years of negotiation. So ICANN's going to be in charge 2 weeks from now. There's not going to be any change in that.
Okay, but Randall, what about DNS? You mentioned okay, so they've got the naming charts now. If you set up your own DNS system, if somebody was using, this has happened, and I'll explain this maybe later, but
yeah, that's been tried 6 or 7 times. It's never gotten anywhere.
Well, not on a global scale for sure.
Right.
But okay, what about DNS hijacking and stuff like that? And that's happened by accident a couple of times. Most recently, there was something with going through Malaysia and all that. You don't think that I'm not saying that they control at all times the internet, but there's certainly something about that that's a little scary in that, suppose I'm set, okay,
well, there's the Great Firewall of China, and they're also looking at doing that in Iran, I think, somewhere, and a couple other places. I mean, certainly we're not all going to get exactly the same response regardless of where we're sitting in the world with our laptop. I understand that, but I think by and large, there's an old phrase, I forget what it's like, the internet views censorship as a failure and routes around it.
Right. No, the original concept was great. Okay, what about things like Microsoft and Google? Well, particularly Google with their search engine, but also Bing. I mean, if there are people who use Bing, there must be people who use Yahoo too. So Google actually has, I'm not saying that they exercise it consciously, although do they? But we all know that when they change their algorithm, things happen. between DNS and Google, there would be a huge amount of control that could be exercised potentially, right?
It depends what you mean by control then. You know, you're not going to affect the way that I can go to my own website with either of those, unless DNS gets taken over. And again, I think ICANN's been holding on to this for years. I don't think they're going to give up any sort of control at that point, because, you know, we're going to be there. And yes, maybe Google today will list my website at the top when you type in, you know, Randall Schwartz or Pearl Training, and tomorrow they'll list it, you know, 3 spots down. I don't care. I don't care. At least I'll probably still be on the first page. That's all I care.
Actually, the DNS problem is a little bit different, because if I was about to ask you, so maybe you use OpenDNS, or you use your provider, your ISP's DNS, or you use Google's DNS. What do you use, just out of curiosity?
Well, I mean, I use OpenDNS, but I can also just use the root servers, and the root servers are controlled by ICANN, or at least indirectly by ICANN. So not a problem.
Okay, but most people, I would say, by the way, it's a fair statement that most people use probably their ISP's.
Right. So when I was on Comcast, I pointed at Comcast servers. When I'm sitting at work, sometimes I'm using whatever the work servers provided. Right. But I can also point at OpenDNS, or I can point at Comcast directly. Luckily, they provide, I think it's 8844, or is that Google's?
That's Google. 8888 and 8844 is Google.
It's 4444 then, I think, is Comcast, or one of those. And so you can use those directly. They provide it publicly for everybody. And they're a big provider, and, you know, so I could trust that, you know, for at least a while.
The word trust.
But that's the other thing, is that you can always, like, ask 2 or 3 different DNS servers, and if you get different results back, you can go, oh, I'll vote. I just trust these guys now. They're giving me a bad, bogus response for that. The only time that goes screwy is when we had the problem where who's the evil company that was running the .com top level?
Network Solutions.
Network Solutions provided the wild card for .com and pointed at their own servers every time they got a bogus .com. That's when we run into trouble, but ICANN came after them and got that all fixed. So I don't think that's going to happen again. There was too much outcry, too much backlash from that. I don't think it's going to happen again.
You know, so I'm really dying to cross swords with you, Randall. You think that ICANN is an organization that works for the good, or that it's a good solution, or just a good temporary solution?
They have their own interest at heart, but so far they've been only minimally evil.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in private discussions, as I promised you, over the rum and coke, or whatever it is these days. Who else? Carl, I'm going to call on you because I can't see you, but if anybody else has anything to say, I hope you'll make a sign in the Hangout. We'll go through everybody, but Carl, did you have something you wanted to add? I'm sure you did. Except he might be going through the tunnel. Bob, any comments? Or Life? No? Bob's okay. Life, certainly you do. Come on. Russell just went dark because he doesn't want to say anything. Tap, tap. Is this thing on? Andy.
I could say something, but I wouldn't be contributing to the arguments and/or for or against here. I just simply don't know enough about it. I'm an interested observer.
At least
I may be interested in using that concept of only minimally evil. I think that's an interesting idea.
There is that. There is that. I personally, this is ironic, but I personally, one of the things about ICANN that I'm not thrilled about is that they're in the United States, just like people in Russia or the other people that have been cited in these articles, is that the United States did construct the initial internet, but I don't believe that one country should be necessarily responsible for all of this stuff now, but I don't know. Do you agree, Randall, or not? I guess you probably don't, but I'm looking for
I don't know. I don't know. I think I would like it to be an international organization that's actually in charge of the internet, but I haven't seen a lot of international organizations and technology meld real well. Yeah. It always seems to be confusing. I mean, like, I don't know how the ITU came up, I think, with the GSM standard, and that means I can use my phone in South America and Europe, and that seems to work pretty well because I'm on a GSM phone. But I don't know what else they've done that's really sort of worked well. I mean, I still have to use a different plug when I go to Europe and when I go to South America. Why the hell do I have to use a different plug when I travel around the world? I don't think we understand technology very well.
I know why, because the U.S. uses the bad plug. But other than that,
No, we use the nice,
There are-
convenient,
there are-
tiny plug. Come on, it works well. Not these big freaking prongs and high voltage that can kill you. Ugh.
Well, there are issues here. One of the things that occurs to me is I'm not happy with the U.S. being in control of it in the fashion that they are, but at the same time, it seems to me that the UN is not an effective or efficient body. It seems to me that governmental bodies or government-like bodies controlling technology are sort of going in opposite directions, because one is getting faster and faster and the other is getting slower and slower, and that seems kind of doomed.
remember that the ITU, one of the major contributions that they did was with regard to radio frequencies, right? Isn't that the big chart that we all have with the spectrum? The spectrum allocation was done through the ITU in Geneva in the old days when Geneva was the big thing. Now it's Dubai. Hello, excuse me. You know, where do they hold these things, by the way? Places where the shopping is the best. So when these people drag their wives with them on the paid junkets, they have something to do. I bet that's too close for comfort. If anybody's familiar with that. Yeah, I would agree that the ITU is probably not the ultimate body for this. And by the way, the FCC is even less effective at this kind of thing. That was a joke. They've tried, haven't they, though? I seem to remember some attempts by the FCC. Well, net neutrality was actually something that was discussed by the FCC, right? So-called.
Well, sure, and ultimately you have to have people who are informed about the matters with which they're dealing, and does anybody actually think that folks in government are informed about anything other than just staying in government?
No. Their main thing is staying in government. It's like my camera just went out in the back there, so you're not seeing the delicious goodness of my setup while somebody's talking from ZipDX. The other thing is countries, and you mentioned this right in the beginning, Randall, that China's firewall, the Great Firewall, is one, and that recently, and I did post this, by the way, in the community thing, if I could just find that now, because I've got so many windows open. One of the articles mentions the recent efforts. Well, one of the most recent was Egypt, I think. Or where was it that the internet went off? Syria, that the internet suddenly mysteriously went off for like 3 hours?
Yeah, Syria they shut down for a bit, I think. And that's not unusual. I mean, it could just be pure chaos that shuts it down. It doesn't have to even be an orchestrated or requested effort by the government. It would just be that things are crazy. You know, because there's a lot of moving parts to the internet. You know, there's a lot of stuff that has to keep up and running. And if you're not around to, you know, if you don't show up at your post at 8 o'clock in the morning to take over the shift from the night guy, and then something goes down at 10 or 11, you know, you got to push a button somewhere.
No, that's 100% true. And when they have, if you've ever been at a big show, I would guess that NAB is one of those. Michael, I know you've been to those. I would guess that you got almost no cell access because of the demand on the network. So the shutdown. Well, Life is saying that the Syria thing was 2 days by the government. But anybody who's ever been to a show that gets where the service gets saturated, of course, you don't have any service there either, and that is not the government. What are you going to say, Michael?
Actually, NAB is not so bad with respect to cell service. Cell service, Vegas is pretty stoked for cellular service and even mobile internet access. But if the Las Vegas Convention Center has Wi-Fi throughout, and that is basically worthless.
Yeah.
Through the larger shows.
Mm-hmm. And other than that, I was also going to mention the parallel. Look at in San Francisco in BART, when I think it maybe have been the Occupy movement, or maybe this happened elsewhere also. You know, we're going to shut this stuff down because otherwise the people are going to organize. So, you know, it's not China and Korea, North Korea are not the only countries that do this. And we're not really talking only about the internet, but about telecommunications. I also mentioned in my post someplace, I don't even know where it is. There's so many channels we communicate on these days that here in Europe, most of the countries were nationalized. The infrastructure was built by the country, excuse me. So if you wanted to get on the Oh, Randall, you remember this? The Byte network, wasn't it? What was that called? The network that you could communicate to Byte magazine in like the 1990s.
Yeah, the early stuff. Yeah, right.
Sure.
Old pre-Prodigy, pre-CompuServe, pre-AOL. Anyway, that stuff I recall seeing. Well, if you're in Switzerland, please contact your PTT, which is PTT means the Post Office and Telegraph and Telecommunications or something. And it's true that in this country, that's exactly what happened as well. So all that infrastructure was built by the government and nationalized. In the United States, though, and maybe somebody else would be willing to take this on, the United States, I guess it was mostly private via AT&T during the monopoly or the pre-breakup, so-called, of the monopoly. I don't know. How did that all work? Who built the infrastructure in the USA?
Well, basically, yeah, it was AT&T originally, and they sort of developed the early stuff. But the internet was sort of rolled out, I think, by, I forget the name of the big university in the East that was taking the DARPA contract to actually develop IP and all the things we had before that. And then Berkeley came in a little bit later to advance a little bit more of it. Yeah, names escape me now. It's too early in the morning still.
Carnegie Mellon?
Yeah, CMU, but there was another big one in the East. Doesn't matter. Anyway, cool. Doesn't matter.
Actually, going back to the origin of the PSTN, it was much, much more regional than maybe we know or is commonly thought of. Nicholas Carr's book, The Big Switch, is a wonderful historical overview of that, and it moves up through electrification and telecom and this sort of thing. There were regional little telcos all over the country, and AT&T was the long distance provider, and they were in the bigger cities, and there was a great amalgamation, and it was, the monopoly came out of the AT&T swallowing or destroying all these little regional companies. And the government's, the governmental lesson in this is it was a really interesting phenomena of the early days of antitrust, because the government said, hey, it's easier for us to deal with this one monolithic giant than it is for us to deal with all these little guys. So we're just going to let them take over that, and then we're going to regulate it.
Okay, at any rate, I'm still trying to get my other camera working here. Let me put myself back on for the thrill and enjoyment of everybody. There I am.
Hey, Randy, we talked.
One of the things we should do is we should ask if there's a way of getting caller ID track or something from ZipDX into the Hangout so that we could pass IDs between Hangouts and ZipDX. That'd be cool.
There's so much work that would be nice to be able to do through the Hangout. One of the ways we could do this, and we're just amongst ourselves here as geeks, one of the ways we could do it is to simply do the Hangout as a non-air Hangout and record it, and also just phone ZipDX, in which case it would be a little bit easier. But that won't solve the problem you're talking about, but it would solve a few other problems. Unfortunately, we're still waiting for Google to allow some way for SIP to connect to these things. And hey, what if it was SIP video? Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Or what if the Silk server guys got media passing through their XMPP gateway, which I hear is a pending project, and that would allow us to do SIP to XMPP with audio and video streams.
Yeah, also. By the way,
you could turn the bridge software into something that would generate video that would actually have like the caller ID as a video signal. Then you could feed that to Google.
Except that there's no way to talk to Google at the moment, video or otherwise, other than having a station, like I'm doing now.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. You can just do that, but have actually like the caller ID. This is somebody talking, whatever, as different people talk on the bridge.
Actually, we could do that by me putting my camera on the ZipDX console right now, because we did a call like this a couple of days ago for the Mega Conference.
Well, there you go.
I just had a camera on. I had a phone connected to the mega conference, and then I put the camera looking at the phone and the phone camera looking at the thing. So I had two devices facing each other, kind of like the phones reversed, if you know what I mean, where you got the microphone to the speaker. So I did that with video, and it actually didn't look as bad as it sounds. I wanted to.
This is advanced technology. We have to use an air gap. That's pretty smart.
Exactly. I mean, that's what's so silly. I wanted to read this though because. Let's see. Lars said there's still plenty of small regional phone companies. That was a few minutes ago. Old Hack says 5 years later, the NSF Net was launched, constructed by MCI, and we've kind of forgot about MCI, didn't we? This ultra-high-speed digital network linked a number of academic computer centers and became the backbone of the internet. That's an important point. I'm glad you mentioned that. Full disclosure, I was hired by MCI over 17 years ago, and maybe I drank the company Kool-Aid. Okay, good, great comment. Great.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of small companies still. I graduated from high school in Colton, and Colton Telephone Company is the oldest. Well, they're still a standalone company, and they claim to be the first mobile telephone company west of the Mississippi. And when I was in high school there, you could dial a 5-digit number. You dialed 4 and the other 4 digits to get to somebody else in Colton. It's pretty awesome.
Growing up in deep northern Ontario, because vast tracts of geography were served by one area code. Within our little town of 5,000, 4-digit dialing was the norm, and our house number was 6520. And I didn't encounter 7 or 10-digit dialing until moving down into the Toronto area much later.
Well, when I was a kid, you'll be happy to know that there was no dial on the phone at all. You picked it up and asked for the number.
Strange the way these things go round. Now, I actually have to dial a full national code, even if I want to ring my next door neighbour. They've taken away the ability to call locally.
Yeah, they have here too. And I guess in the U.S. you can still call a 7-digit number, right?
7-digit number in smaller places. In most larger places, you're forced into 10-digit dialing.
Especially with cell phones. Cell phones, it's mandatory basically. And who has a landline now? Really, I don't have a landline anywhere. So.
Well, actually, that brings us to another interesting topic, which regarding VoIP, which is that I'm seeing a wave of people asking for advice on getting cheaper landlines, and so they're all going to VoIP, so-called, which is amusing in that they're already on VoIP and don't know it in most countries, probably. I don't know what it's like in the States, but here in this country, for example, anything you are talking on is probably most likely VoIP. In fact, maybe without even exception, VoIP.
G'day all.
What was that?
Sorry.
I said g'day all.
Oh, good day from, that must be Chris. I'm not looking at the console there, but it's got to be.
DX. On the DX. I woke up at 4:11 and dialed it.
Time to get on the Hangout before Randall leaves, which is in about 4 minutes. Poor Chris. Okay, good day. Good day, all, he said. Anyway, anybody else have any comments on who controls the internet? It's an interesting topic, and what about this internet switch that's been talked about? I'm not even sure how that would be done, but I guess if you were the government, you could.
Let me ask a question of the assembled
Sure.
cognoscente here. There is this thing, Internet 2. Now, I gather this is a research and experimental network where really high bandwidth solutions are being tried out. Does that intersect with the Internet? Is it managed in some different way?
It's a subset, and it's filtered, so you can't get to those IP addresses from the general Internet. So you have to be at one of the institutions that belongs to it to be able to access that backbone.
So is that something that's going to be coming soon?
No, 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 no. It's a special. It's not really a separate internet, except by filtering. So it's using the same domain name system, the same IP address space. When you're at one of the institutions like that, like I was sitting at University of Buffalo, and I was also at what was I at Summer for the yet another Perl conference. If you're at one of these institutions, you can hit a few more sites than you would otherwise. But if you try to hit those same sites from the general internet, they'll say no because the filters are in the way.
And what its purpose is something specific, though, right? I mean,
yeah, it's a bunch of cooperating organizations that are typically doing stuff that involves a high volume of data, like genetics research or nuclear research, where you're doing simulations of explosions and things, where you've got billions and billions of mega terabytes that you need to ship quickly. So what these institutions have built up a backbone that is a lot fatter than the average backbone speeds, so they can afford to talk to each other over this backbone that they've built. So it's pretty much it's a research and development cluster of communities at various institutions around the U.S. It may even involve international, I'm not sure, but it's at least I think 6 or 7 points in the U.S. I'm sure there's a Wikipedia article on this that I should just be looking at and reading and sounding smart, but this is what I remember from that.
Good one. Tim Patton's with us too. Tim, good day to you. You have any ideas of who controls the internet?
The more people, the better. I, like you, don't think I trust ICANN. I think that the most interesting point recently is the stuff about the BGP routing tables and how they're managed. I mean, there's DNS and there's BGP as the fundamentals of who controls what, and to a lesser extent number allocation. But I think the BGP stuff and who can push into that, and it's basically a web of trusted. I can't remember how many ASs there are, but several, probably 10,000 ASs can push BGP routes, and those are that's a good number. It's not too many, but it's not too small. You don't want it to be 2 or 3, and you don't want it to be 100 million. It's a bit of a club, but I think it's that may be the way that things get done, actually.
Yeah, and is this the case where nobody may like ICANN? ICANN may be nobody's friend or less than optimal, but like capitalism, right? The best system that we've got, imperfect though it may be.
Not even, but go ahead.
Well, no. That's why I was drawing an in. Maybe I didn't do a very good job of it, but I think it's a very interesting comparison between the way the BGP tables are managed, where there, as far as I can tell, there is no central authority. It's just basically a web of trust. Whereas DNS, and that's what handles the fundamental routing of the packets. That's a web of trust between, well, everyone who's an AS, and there are, I think, 10,000 plus ASs on the internet. So that's how packets get routed, and then DNS is a hierarchical structure run by ICANN, top-down layered design. You need to trust the root servers, otherwise you're completely hosed. Controlled effectively now by a government, a single government, and it's a totally different structure. You've got two of these separate structures layered on top of each other that are the internet. And I think the fact that they're totally different structures running the same network, I think is fascinating. That's me. That's my rant.
Well,
I forgot about the ASs. That's right, because there was like an error. Was it about a year ago, where somebody in some country said, "I'm the best way to the U.S.," and all of a sudden detoured a whole bunch of U.S. traffic to this bad little site to pull it in. So yeah, again, that was quickly handled by the people around it, saying, "Oh wait, that can't possibly be right," and other protocols are put in place to make sure that doesn't happen too many more times again. But we have to worry about stuff like that. True.
There was a BGP routing error that involved China, and there was a lot of guessing that was on purpose.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nice.
But I think the fact that it's run as a cooperative, unstructured collaboration, I think is fascinating, and that it largely works.
And it's all, yeah, as you said, it's all done on handshakes.
And people who trust each other or meet each other at conferences or whatever it is they do. I'm not part of that elite group, but I know that it exists.
Well, if you've been around the net for a while, you might remember the old Usenet. Actually, it's still there, but in a really reduced form. But Usenet was basically a bunch of people getting together with cooperative UUCP links. So, Berkeley would link to, somewhere in the Midwest and stuff. And UUNet sort of helped a little bit with that and actually became sort of central in responsibility for that. But ultimately, it was like people peering with other people, so that my message posted on a machine in Portland would eventually, over the course of the next 24 hours, would flood machines all over the world. And that was cool. And that was, bottom up sort of, let's just get this thing to work, and we have a protocol to get it to the next machine. Let's use that to do flooding. And all of a sudden we had news groups all over the world predating a lot of the modern communication systems.
Yeah, no, I remember UCP, and I'm still fond of it. All my email used to come through somewhere in Amsterdam called MCVAX. Basically everything that arrived in Europe came through this one MCVAX route, or predominantly anyway. So all of my email addresses, so the email route was kind of concatenated in. So you had the bang syntax, and so all of my emails always had MCVAX somewhere in the bang syntax of how they'd got to me at that point. Yeah, no. So I mean, I'm a big fan of collaboration rather than top down.
But my very first email address that was not a CompuServe account ID was provided through a provider in Tennessee called Win.net, who were, when nobody was providing commercial email outside of ISPs, providing to their customers, and that was a fledgling business. They were providing sort of independent email address. It was all UUCP based. You had a little app that copied, basically a WinSock app that handled the mail transfer. It was funny.
Yeah, no, it's a good protocol actually. It's still a good protocol of sorts.
There's an interesting. I want to read this before it goes off. There's an interesting. Lars has posted something interesting in IRC, and it's worth reading so that people who are listening to this later can take a look at it. He says if you want to look up the ASN of any IP address, I don't know how to pronounce it. CYMRU has a web app for that, and that would be at. This is a URL asn.cymru.com. Check that out. I hope it's not a virus, Lars, but I don't think so. So check that out if you're listening.
Hey, Randy, I posted a link for something called Netalyzer, which is a Java application from Berkeley that does a pretty significant evaluation of your IP connection and evaluates even things like buffer bloat and DNS resolution. So going back to the trusting various entities on the internet, here's an example of an application that lets you verify that trust. And I know that there's been some ISPs that were doing the wildcard DNS tricks in the past that caused some problems. So using this app, if you run this app, just be warned, it does a bandwidth check that is fairly effective at evaluating your bandwidth. So if you're doing it in your office, you may see people around you hit the return key a few times. But it's a pretty effective tool.
Cool, Bob.
I just ran it, and it's mostly green with only a couple little oranges indicating some blocked ports.
Randall, I'm your alarm here. You said you had to go, so.
Well, I'm just counting how many other things I have to do before I walk out the door, and I'm probably okay for another 15 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, you're welcome to stay around then.
All right. Yeah. But it is going to be shortly.
Yeah. I on the other hand, have to go and catch a train in a second. So, and unlike Bodhi, I'm not going to provide you a video feed of that activity.
And where is Bodhi, by the way? He must be actually doing something.
How big a mitt do you need to catch a train?
Don't you have them out there? Yes.
Just before you go, Tim, I'm not sure that this is part of this, but I'd be interested to know what the answer is to this anyway. How did your hackathon thing at Manchester go today? Your collaboration.
Oh no, I'm sitting here right now in this new Tech Hub space. You can see it's newly fitted in this fantastically old. You see the beams on the ceiling? Fantastically old.
I'm spinning.
Yes, make you dizzy now. But this fantastically old building set up as a high-tech co-working space, which is which is fun actually. I spent the day in here. I'm still working my way through it. But anyway, now I better go and catch this train with both my hands, and I'll probably listen in, but I can't join probably. All right, take care.
There's an MP3. There's an MP3 feed though, so you can
Yeah,
grab
I can
it.
listen. I can definitely listen to that. Definitely listen to that.
And thanks, Tim. I just want to mention in passing that all of this stuff, I've a bunch of good links here. So this is the perfect opportunity to say that we will be posting this on IP Communications, our new group on Google+, and just about everybody here is or better be a member of that soon, because that seems to me to be a really good place to post what would in other places be called show notes. I don't call this a show. Let's face it, we got nothing to show. We're just here. Anyway, what else about who controls the internet? Again, I'm sorry to say that Martin Geddes is sharing space with people and could not get up at 6 a.m. to speak to us, but he'll be back, and he is really a fascinating guy. He's one of these people you go, how does anybody have that much intellect about stuff like this, and how does he keep it all together? That question will be answered maybe next month. What else? What else you got, Randall? Should we talk about low LC?
Randy,
Go ahead, whoever that is.
Randy, this is Jimmy Carpenter in Phoenix.
Yeah, go Phoenix.
Well, first of all, I had a question to follow up on. I think Andy was asking Tim about their collaborative hackathon. Does anyone know if there's something posted on that to see what sort of activities transpired?
Andy?
I haven't the vaguest idea. The only thing I saw was Tim's tweet on it this morning, so I thought it worth asking him. But unfortunately, he's disappeared.
Anything on the? I think there was a Google hackathon on WebRTC about a week ago. Is that the same hackathon you're talking about?
No, not in this case. No, I think the hackathon he went to before was in London. Probably in Google's tech center in London, I would think.
And last week at this time, there was the WebRTC thing in London. I don't know how that went, but we did have a live report from the guys there, a couple of them anyway, including Google's Serge Lachapelle and Jan Linden, right? Who I don't know who he's with, if he's with Google or not, I don't recall. But they were both kind enough.
With Google. Jan is formerly very high up with Global IP Solutions.
There you go. What is he?
Randy,
Randall's out of drinks. Yes. You see, hey, folks, do you see how skinny Randall is? Let me put that up there. He's not talking. I want you to take a look at this. Here he comes. Oh, okay. Check that out. A regular model, huh? Oh, wow. Greetings. This is what I wanted.
Yeah, really. You hit the wrong sound button. It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's like that.
He's like, greetings. You have reached a new level of consciousness. We'll get to that later. All right, we're coming up on, let's see, 20 minutes too. I know I'm all nervous about Randall being late and having to go to someplace, but...
Don't worry. Hey, it's a soft schedule. I just have to drive 3 hours the moment I leave here, so I'm trying to just kind of make it not too early, but not too late either. So. Are
you in your home territory right now, Randall? Or are you?
No, I'm in a hotel in Los Angeles, just north of the airport, and I've been working all week for my new client here, and spending the weekend with my buddies just outside San Diego, as I like to say it, but. I'll be speaking a lot of Spanish this weekend. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, great. Anyway.
Hey, Randy.
Yeah.
Jay again. The live update from the Google Hackathon, is that available anywhere? Was that recorded at all, or was that just live?
If you're talking about the WebRTC from last week's conference in London, right. That would be on the YouTube channel. And it's on the VUC.me thing also. That was the first 20 minutes or so of last week's VUC session, which was 412, and this is 413. Entity too large. Not getting any laughs.
What are we going to do on 420?
I think it goes off at something like 420, doesn't it?
I thought we were just seeing entity as being reduced.
I'll have to look that up. We're getting close to the end of the 400s, and then it'll go up to 500, which is what, the server error or something. We'll have trouble with that one.
I think the 420 would be associated with some marijuana thing.
Well, we've been through the ones we could. I mean, obviously that kind of thing gets old anyway, so if there were like hundreds of them, we'd probably get tired of it. But right now it's kind of a funny joke. Carl, I don't think you sounded off too much about who you think controls the internet, did you? Who's controlling all this jitter and packet loss?
Yeah, I don't have any huge opinions on that. Although I was sort of thinking the other day when Syria and other countries have policies that are unfriendly toward their citizenry. It seems to me that because internet connectivity is based on discrete links that are finite and well defined, it would be conceivable, and I'm guessing that eventually inevitable, that internet connectivity will be an item of influence in what do you call it, embargo, in embargo situations where you're saying, we're not going to trade packets with you basically until you guys shape up and stop torturing your citizens, or until you allow the free flow of communication, because we're not going to let you connect to the internet either. You, Mr. Government, or
that's a double-edged. But that's an interesting point. But it is a double-edged sword, exactly like any other embargo. Because if you were doing an embargo, well, there's that also. But then if you were going to embargo, say, wheat in a nation that needed grain, who would be suffering? The people would be hungry. Same thing with the internet. So I wonder if that could have any impact at all.
In that case, I think though you're absolutely right, and that's why I was thinking about it for more than a few seconds. And the thing that strikes me as being different is that in the food scenario, okay, so first of all, in both scenarios, it's likely that the citizens are starving in both scenarios for data and also for food. But in the data scenario, the most likely reason for the embargo is because they're not being fed. You know what I mean? So in other words, like you have the Great Firewall of China and censorship and all kinds of other things happening. So basically, to say, you know what, screw you guys, we're cutting you off until you allow freer flow of information, etc. I guess the most probable reason for a data embargo would be because the citizenry are already being starved or selectively starved of perhaps the most essential data nutrients, as it were, to take the metaphor a little too far. So I don't know. I'm just speaking top of mind here. So please chime in if you.
Well, that's a good point
on the issue.
I think it's.
He said as he ripped
so many different sensibilities.
Put the bass back.
Say that again, Michael.
There's so many different sensibilities, and I can see, we might think we're taking the high road and blah blah blah, and then some Scandinavian country decides that America is in fact becoming draconian conservative, and we should be embargoed, and it's
true.
I think something more not consensus based but collaborative, and where there isn't the opportunity to be arbitrary quite so easily.
Right, and then the other question would be, once you've decided that you're going to allow and build a technology around, or perhaps improve the technology around a data embargo, what are the borders? What are the jurisdictions on which that could be enforced? I mean, certainly you've got data embargoes in businesses, right, where they say, sorry, no porn sites allowed here. But if that
becomes, certainly you could make an argument for allowing or enabling a data embargo on the country level, but why not the state level? Why not the city level, or even the ward of your of your city, and so or your ISP, as it were, to say So anyway, so this idea of free flow of information is pretty it's pretty fundamental to the internet. But then again, I guess the reason that we're discussing for as the valid grounds, or the theoretical valid grounds for an embargo, would be because somebody is trying to constrict the flow of information, and so therefore their information is being constricted. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just, again, speaking top of mind.
This is Jay in Phoenix. Just a couple thoughts on this. Number one, the free flow of information is, you guys are more technical than I am, but I am not really sure that it's feasibly stoppable in the Internet Protocol realm, especially when you
Am I the only one that lost audio?
Kind of. It's not geographic, but at the same time, I mean, let's say that you're any country. There are a finite and well-defined number of physical links that traverse your borders. You've got 17 transatlantic cables and you have 45 trans-Pacific cables, and you've got this number of of microwave links and whatever. So you could those are all well defined. I guess it wouldn't stop somebody from creating a pirate link, either most probably a satellite link, which would be difficult and non-discrete. It would be discrete and therefore difficult to control. And certainly, if you did a data embargo with a country, the ones with the most probable means to get a pirate link would be the government that you're trying to influence. So, but as far as high quality, highly usable links that enable all of the data intensive things that happen on the internet, those are all glass fibers that people could count, and each one is explicitly accounted for. So I'm guessing that apart from the realm of the pirate links, that's something that would conceivably be feasible.
True. It's just that it seems to be that connectivity is becoming almost as ubiquitous as the various addressing schemes that can be created.
Mm-hmm.
And under that scenario, I think as time goes on, and maybe, and I appreciate everything you're saying about the certain choke points today. However, I think that as time goes on, we're going to see more and more ubiquitous connectivity, and which becomes even less and less geographically associated.
Mm-hmm. So you're thinking of things like wireless mesh networks and things like that across country borders, yeah, right.
And add to that IPv6 addressing, where everyone's got addresses, and you can encrypt and tunnel over other infrastructures. And so I agree that I don't think you can stop it. I think we can always route around the problem. Maybe not fast, but
IPv6 make it easier or harder? Because I'm thinking about with IPv6, everybody's public-facing address is user-specific unless you're explicitly proxying.
I think IPv6 gives the opportunity for more expansion and more routing around opportunities of people trying to control the internet.
Just a moment's positivity. Isn't it great? Just outstanding. Breathtakingly beautiful that the architecture of a technology can circumvent the intent of those who would seek to control or manipulate so well. I mean, it just
Yeah. I think that's the point, Michael. I think that's going to keep us free and open.
But here's the thing that I think we might be overlooking, and I think that Jay's point about things like wireless mesh networks, as I'm thinking about it right now, and please correct me if this isn't right, but we're looking at the beauty of the abstraction of the logical and the physical. In other words, we're looking at the Internet Protocol and saying, like, isn't this super badass that if you have one physical link that's broken, the abstraction layer of the Internet Protocol will basically route around and make the absence of that physical link irrelevant. And while that is true, it ultimately all comes down to physical links. There is no connectivity without physical links. And so if you are the Republic of Moldova, you may have 10 links in and out of your country, 10 glass fibers in and out of your country. And if you cut all 10 of them, then abstraction through the Internet Protocol doesn't mean anything. There's no route around because you don't have any connectivity. So I think that until you have physical links that create a bit of amorphous amorphous abstraction that we're kind of alluding to with the abstraction that the Internet Protocol puts on physical links. Once you have a wireless mesh network that can actively and dynamically create new physical links over the air between physical base stations wherever they happen to be, then suddenly if you have 1,000 transceivers that can conceivably communicate with any other thousand or thousands of transceivers, and suddenly you've got hundreds of millions of potential links to try to combat, which starts to become difficult or impossible. But my point is that until that point, all the beautiful abstraction we're describing, if you're in the example of Moldova, would come down to, in this example, 10 links, period.
Right, but don't you think that the direction things are headed is
correct?
Towards...
You're absolutely right. I totally agree with you. But I would say that let's not forget that today, that is the reality of it. Even though you're hopefully increasingly correct.
And at a certain point, though, I mean, it moves out of the domain of the technological completely, right? I mean, you've got 200 links at 8 locations or whatever, a sufficiently large armed force directed at sufficient, certain telecom hotels, and you have control of that.
That's right.
And so, it moves out of the realm of the technological into the realm of the physical at some point. But if you're the Prince of Moldova, okay, yeah, you have to guard that building very carefully.
Right. And I wonder too if there's not another problem, like where, let's say, for example, we theoretically have the ability to reroute, but you have a little bit of the elevator congestion problem, where let's say that you have a whole bunch of people that are trying to get out of a building, and so you've got an elevator at operating at 100% capacity. When the demand spikes, then you get a lot of congestion and things where, like, people are pressing both the up and the down button, even though they only want to go down because they want to get any elevator. And so, my point is that you can end up in a situation where your capacity actually decreases as a result of your increased need. So one, at the time when you have a decrease in capacity, your remaining capacity is further diminished by the congestion, that the loss of efficiency that happens because of congestion. So so the idea would be that, like, to your point exactly, Michael, if you've got a building like 350 East Cermak, or 230 South Federal in Chicago, and somebody takes those buildings out, well, every pointy connection across the country touches those buildings, and so theoretically you can route around it. But if those things are operating even close to capacity, if the resources in the facilities in that building are operating anywhere near capacity, that you may end up with precisely an inability to route around because your links are now so so loaded up that the reality is that your applications that you use on that network don't work anymore. Certainly, the first things to go would be things like voice and and video bandwidth intensive kinds of things. And the last to go would be older, less expensive protocols like email, stuff like that. But I don't know. That's just a thought. It's one of those things that is famously unaccounted for in the realm of engineering. Thanks, John. So,
but Carl, the point you're bringing up, in my view, is after reading quite a bit of Martin Geddes' recent contributions, I think that's exactly what Martin is saying is happening without any kind of malicious interference of the points of presence or anything else. Is that,
I see.
There's the way I view it, it's almost like there's a huge denial of service attack that's just sort of building up as our appetite for the internet continues to grow at an exponential rate.
Right.
And I think that's his exact point. Even if you had all the infrastructure in place and operating, there's already this propensity or incentive for the packets to start to collide. And there is no contention management over the whole thing.
Right.
So I think you're bringing up a point that if Martin were with us, he would be saying you're dead on. So
I see. Yeah, and then of course, as our networks continue to converge, right now we kind of think, oh well, we can always just sort of fall back on the voice network when other communication modalities don't work, and in my practical experience, that's been essential. In other words, let's say anything happens to take out our data network, whether that's an Ethernet switch that goes bad, or whatever, some configuration corruption that happens on our router, and you're scrambling around trying to figure out why everything is broken now. In the few cases where we've had problems like that, it's always been kind of a refreshing, welcome reminder of the importance of separation of your voice network and your data network, so that you have a little bit of redundancy, so that when your data network goes down, you can call somebody, and when your voice network goes down, you can send an email and reach out for support. But if those are both commingled such that you have a single point of failure, it doesn't matter what your reliability is. If you have a single point of failure, or any single point failure mode is a risk that needs
certainly
to
be. And certainly, even you have to be practical about this stuff, and then I don't know whether you're considering it at the institutional level or business level or even at the home office level. Different modalities of connectivity. Now, even if you don't have POTS connectivity, but in my case, it's cable and DSL, and they go different directions. They go different directions down the road, across different sets of poles to different intermediate locations, and connect back to different ISPs and all of that, right? And the third modality would be cellular, in that if all goes to hell, I will tether to my phone.
But here's the thing, Michael. You may have kind of I'm not sure what the right term is. I want to say something like comorbidities, like when one problem happens, another problem is increasingly probable. But our most, so we've had this fiber link here at our Chicago office that goes down to a major POP that's in the basement of this building. It's been great, and in 10 years we've never, ever, ever had a link failure. However, we have had service failures, not very many, but we had a couple of service failures, and it turns out that every single one of those service failures, it would not have made any difference if we had had any one of about 6 Chicago ISPs because they all use the same level 3 backhaul. And level 3 Inc. That is not layer 3, level 3, the company backhaul.
Right.
And so when level 3's backbone gets congested and they turn up another link and they start updating their BGP tables to use that link, and somebody fucks up an entry and ends up sending data to links that don't exist, well then for a number of hours while those routes are fixed and re-advertised out to all the rest of the downlink connections, and no worky. That's the lesson. And
Sure,
so it doesn't
sure.
matter how good your links are. So the point is that so I guess as networks continue to converge, I think maybe this is speaking directly to Martin's point, which is that you might think you have redundance, but you may not. You may have much less than you think you do. So here at the office, we actually have an AT&T DSL link as our backup, and we specifically chose AT&T DSL because AT&T tends to run an independent network because they have, by legacy, they used to run data over they built the network first, right? So they have a country-to-country network. So when level 3 starts messing up their routing, in our observation, that has not affected AT&T links, but AT&T has their own outages, but that's why you have completely redundant networks. And so I worry that as the voice network continues to stop being a separate thing, and I'm guessing that there's going to be some inevitability to the non-independence of networks like AT&T's network and level 3's network.
Gentlemen,
that, things will happen. Go ahead.
May I? Oh, Andre's coming in. Hello, Andre Reed. So far, he's here, but he's not here.
One
Hello?
day we'll be able to see Andre.
Well, I can see him right now. But indeed, he's not getting audio from the Hangout, unfortunately. Well, we will keep the Hangout going. I'm going to break my recording and start it again, and I'm going to do that on ZipDX as well. The reason I interrupted you folks is because Andre said he was in some meetings, but he was going to come in and talk to us, but he doesn't seem to be.
I'm trying to get in, Randy. Can you hear me?
Oh, there he is. Yes, you are here.
That's not your usual locale, Andre. You're at home.
Yes, I am. I am at home, but I have dial tone running in my ear with my headset here, so it pulled up my link session as well as Hangouts. So let me figure out how to drop this other
working?
one.
And it looks like now you lost your audio there. It looks like you're wearing an office runner.
He sounds polyrific.
Can you hear us, Andre?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I had to kill my link client there.
And we can hear you.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon.
Yeah, so that looks like you're wearing a Sennheiser office runner. Oh, he's lost his audio again.
Oh no!
No, I'm here. No,
he's here.
I was just showing it. It's a wonderful headset. It's the DW Office. Yeah, just the DW Office, not the Pro. Yeah, it's a good headset.
Carl, are you in a place where you can either join the Hangout or look at it? Because I think we may have something big time here now.
Yeah.
So VUC.me/live would be one pretty easy place to say where you can look at it. Okay. Andre, we're dying to hear from you, as you know.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Can and cannot say, and what we can and cannot say.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've missed a bunch of calls, and I feel bad. I've been pretty busy, and I think for good reason. I think you guys have seen the launch of the VVX 600 and the camera, and we've been pretty busy and heads down working on all that. So we announced it, and we're starting to ship the 600s today. So we're pretty excited about that.
Let's run through that for people who don't know. So the VVX 500 came out a while back, and let's talk about because to me that was okay. I saw the 1500, which was a large kind of a military-looking and very overkill for most people phone. Well, it's a great phone, but It does H.323. It does SIP. It has a large screen, and it's a very nice phone, but pretty much overkill for the average desk. The 500. Let's start with that. What happened
Sure.
with that? What was the Polycom viewpoint on bringing that thing out? Great
Sure.
phone.
So let's go back and we'll do a bit of history. I think so. The SoundPoint IP portfolio. Everyone knows it that's in the VoIP industry. It's been around for 10 plus years. We've obviously evolved it with HD voice and some other things. The paradigm of telephony as a whole, I think, is shifting, and Polycom wanted to sort of be at the forefront of that for the desktop phone. As you get more and more smartphones out, you get the touchscreen interface, you get more applications, and Polycom, trying to lead and innovate there for the desktop phone. So that's where the VVX 500 and the whole VVX series, sort of evolved to. So the VVX 500 came out, last October. It's been shipping for about a year. It's a 3.5-inch color, gesture-based or capacitive touch display. We were trying to think forward with what we want to do and go with it. So that's why you'll see, if you've seen the phone, there's 2 USB ports. There's one on the top for a camera, and there's another on the back. So what we've done over the last year, and there's Randy showing you a 500. What we did over this last year and a bit is we brought out the VVX 600, and so we announced it in October, and like I said, we're just starting to ship it today. Very exciting to get it out the door, and it's it's the big brother of the VVX 500. So it's got 4.3-inch capacitive touch display, built-in Bluetooth, the dual USB ports, one on top for a camera, and then it's got the GigE built in, just like the VVX 500. So I am at my home office today, but I did bring, I do have a 600, and with the camera, I've got the little shutter here, and so that's what it looks like. That's what it's going to be doing. We're going to be shipping it out today. So excited about that. The camera is not going to be shipping probably for another month, but when we do, it'll work across the VVX 500, 600, and it'll do both SIP and H.323. So that's sort of where we've been going with the desktop phone, as much as I can tell publicly. Trying to evolve it and innovate and lead, as well as drive video adoption is obviously one of Polycom's big areas of interest. So yeah, that's the short summary on what we've been doing and trying to innovate and bring forward devices that everyone loves. And it looks like Michael there is showing off something as well. So.
Yeah, let me put that on. Let me just say, if you'll permit, that Polycom has really had a major change, at least on this line, and this is your line, right, Andre?
Yep. Yeah. So the entire, so I'm a product manager at Polycom, and the SoundPoint IP and the VVX line are underneath me. So sort of the OpenSIP IP desktop is the way I would describe my portfolio.
Right, and this and Carl Fife is joining us. Terrific. Glad to see that. Andre, this phone is a huge departure from what we think of. Now, Polycom is known for the best sound in the business, I would say. I don't think anybody would dispute that. It's great, great sound. The phones are solid. I mean, everyone knows kind of what a Polycom phone is, but they were a little bit West Wing military. There's just that little aspect of it that has completely, got a phone call there, that has completely changed with the VVX line. And it's interesting that a lot of people didn't think Polycom would be interested in making such a change. To put it just in a phrase, these phones are spectacular. They're really good. The VVX 600, which we can't say a lot about, but it's just a fantastic phone. I'm probably the best phone I've ever owned. Is that close enough to describing it? Okay. Anyone wants to know anything about it? I'm waiting for the USB camera, but in the meantime, this phone will do, I mean, you can point it at websites, and it can be looking at whatever you want. We've discussed this also. You can look at different feeds. You can just use it strictly as a phone. It has a touch screen. The touch screen is very responsive. It's a great phone. Michael or Carl
has a web GUI that you can be happy to use.
There you go.
And may stave off smaller user sites from even worrying about provisioning servers.
And let me mention another thing that we've joked for hours about how the SoundPoint series takes like an hour and a half to boot. These phones boot in just a few seconds, and that's a huge change as far as I'm concerned as well.
For let me say something. So for a big company, we do listen. It took a while, and we know the feedback. We took the feedback on boot times. We took the feedback on the web interface that Michael was sort of pointing out. We redid it in a software version that we released last year. So it's a completely new web UI. It doesn't require a reboot on every page, and we even have a page that is called Simple Setup that you can go and you can get everything you need in one spot, and doesn't force you to reboot and go to the next tab and reboot and go to the next tab. So yeah, we listen, we take a bit of the feedback, and then we take it to heart, and we try to improve it. And one of the other things with the VVX portfolio, for all of the guys that do installs, and you're very familiar with trying to unplug a network cable on a SoundPoint IP, and trying to do it with your finger, get it in there, cram it in, and finally get frustrated enough to try and pull off the stand, realize that you needed a lot of force to pull off that stand to get that network cable out. So we redid the entire connector well, redid the foot stand. It's got 3 different positions, so you can angle the phone in different angles. So definitely listen, definitely took feedback to heart, and trying to improve constantly. Although there is always a time to get things done. We're trying to listen always. So yeah, we're glad you like it, Randy.
Oh, I think it's fantastic, and I would actually do a little demo, but obviously when you're looking at your interface, you've got too much personal private information on it. But the thing boots very quickly. Paul, who just joined the Hangout, mentioned this once, amusingly enough, he about 8 years ago did some kind of certification for the SoundPoint IP series. By the way, the 650 was a very good phone. It's just that I think that you've taken a totally radical step with the VVX line, and that's your line.
And even the 600 was a good solid phone, and used them for many years until such time as they weren't being supported in software development anymore.
We have to remember, too, that not everybody needs a color screen on a phone. Hey, it's a telephone, and I'm talking to somebody. You don't necessarily need that screen. But once screens have become ubiquitous, they might as well be color, first of all. And second of all, they might as well serve some purpose. So, okay, you've got your little photos of your kids and stuff on there. That's wonderful. But in this case, you can look at websites, and you can also, we'll be doing some video, I guess. I don't know what we can talk about there, but
so we can talk about it. We announced the camera with in October. So we announced the camera and the phone together. The camera is a 720p transmit, and it'll do SIP and H.323. So we're Polycom. This is sort of one of the links for our desktop phone business into the rest of Polycom. Polycom's, very video-focused, video-centric company. So this is one of the links, and so we're very excited about it. We're excited to bring video into the SMB, to our service provider partners, to the open source partners, and community in a way that we think is affordable. If you look at the pricing of the VVX 500 at $379 and the VVX 600 at $479. This is a lot cheaper than the existing executive SoundPoint IP phones. So you can get the camera and the VVX 600 for the same price you would have paid for an IP 670. So we're trying to bring prices down, trying to evolve people and help bring video adoption out there in a way that they don't have to buy a few $1,000s worth of equipment. Obviously, more and more people are doing soft clients, Hangouts. There's different groups and companies out there. So this is sort of our way of allowing the desktop phone users to participate in video conferencing.
Perfect. We're inviting a few other people in because since you're here, we might as well be able to get you to answer some questions.
Yeah, of course.
I have a question. Is that VVX phone Link compatible? Is it certified for Link?
Yeah, so it'll be qualified for Link in January, I believe. The VVX 500 is already qualified. So there's features that are missing out of qualification between an optimized phone and a 3-pip qualified phone. We'll be working through adding additional features throughout the year. But for now, yeah, we have qualification on the 500, and we're in the process of getting it and expect it in January on the 600.
Somebody asked the street price, not MSRP. I don't know. Is that possible to know what that is?
Yeah, you can look online. I expect the street.
More strategies.
Yeah, you can look on Michael White's site, sure.
Sure. What about IPv6? Hey, Don asked a good question. That is a good question, and I don't have the answer to that, even though I've got one of these phones.
Yeah, it doesn't do IPv6, and it's something Polycom's looking at. It's a hard one. Most networks are going to probably run a mixed IPv4, IPv6, network with internal on the LAN being IPv4. So we are working at. We're looking at it. It's on the roadmap. It's something we're doing. It doesn't do it today.
And I mean, in all fairness, how many phones do? Not that many, I'll bet.
No one does it. I mean, there's some phones out there that do support it, and you can't do mixed mode on the phone itself. There's a lot that needs to change on the phone. The entire phone needs to change the way it talks to the network. So it's quite a big feature. There are some phones out there that are doing it. I don't know if they're doing it well or if it's just simply a checkbox for requirements. Someone says, "Hey, we need this," and they say, "Yeah, we have it," right? So yeah, there's a few out there that are doing it.
I was just answering. Don mentioned that SNOM might do it, but I mean, whatever. The fact is that most networks are mixed today, right now. I suppose in the future, when IPv6 becomes a necessity, everybody will be doing it.
Yeah, and I think the problem too is it won't become a necessity if we do the mixed networks for a few years, right? If it's IPv6 externally and for whatever the gateway is doing the mixing, it'll be a little bit less urgent, but it is something we're looking at. We're aware of the need for it.
Okay, I'm just typing into Twitter the fact that we're talking to you now about this.
Very good.
Okay, let's see. The number of there's a large number of lines on this phone. I don't think I've even reached it yet.
There's 16 lines on the VVX 600 and 12 on the VVX 500.
So on the 600, let's talk 600 because 600 is what I've got on my desk here.
Yeah, it's a beauty. It's a beauty.
Way over here. Beautiful phone. It does a lot of interesting things. By the way, Andre, what was once called the productivity suite is included now. It was once a horribly costly, something like $10 add-on or something. However, it's now in, since one of the versions of the SIP firmware, it's included in all Polycom phones, is it not? Or is it only?
Yeah, so what we did there, and it was less about, I think, people wanting to pay for it than the task of actually getting the license installed on your phone.
Exactly.
We turned it on in UCS 4.0, I think. It might have been 4. Yeah, it was 4.0. And what we did is we actually sort of backported. We put a free license up on our applications website for anyone running, in the threes to turn it on. So it does come on default now with the VVX series as they ship with 4.x and above. So that's something you can do. The local call recording, LDAP integration. One of the other things we're doing on the VVX 500 and 600 is including the voice quality monitoring application, and this is partnership with Telcomy. So we're including that for free as well. And one other thing that we didn't talk about yet on the 600 is it actually has integrated Bluetooth, so able to do headset pairing, Bluetooth headsets to use on those.
There's somebody just mentioned IRC, and it's true. The IP phone warehouse features the VVX camera for $9,999.99.
That's a profitable business they're running there.
Nice.
I expect they'll correct that, but if you want to try and buy a couple, I welcome that.
Let's go for it. Yeah, let me put that in my affiliate links.
Yeah.
It sounds like a very nice business. I don't know. Do we have any idea what the actual add-on is? Is there a reseller price, whatever the suggested retail price on that or not?
Yeah, the camera is 129 US
Okay.
dollars, 129.
And I think you said it's that the phone does 720p. Is that right?
Well, the phone doesn't, the phone can't display HD. The resolution on the display
Right.
just isn't enough. But we can transmit up to 720p from the camera. So the reason we did this is although the phone can't display it, when you join, a bridge call or the other end, the far end is a high-end video capable
Right.
device. We want to be able to present the best quality video. When you're doing, VVX 600 to VVX 600 with the camera, it doesn't need to push that high of resolution.
Right. Just so everybody understands that, I have a customer who has a huge, luxurious conference room. By the way, they're all Polycom equipped. But I mean, they've got a huge screen in there. So if you were just transmitting just enough that the phone could display, you would really look bad on a screen that's, I don't even know how many inches, 60 or more inches of a screen in the conference room. So the fact that you're transmitting 720 is almost like a minimum. It would look horrible if it was anything less, probably. So that's interesting. We'll be looking forward to testing that. Now, there's unfortunately, no way to test it on Google Hangouts. But
yeah, that would be something interesting to do. That definitely would be something we'd like to look at if there's a way to do it.
Well, you know what, Andre? I've said this in the last hour, but I'll say it again. We joined a thing called, and I used the VVX 1500 for this, by the way. We joined a thing called Mega Conference. I tried it with H323, but I was not able to get it to work for reasons that probably have nothing to do with the phone, because I have used that phone with it. But Paul mentions that if there was a VVX 600 giveaway competition today, that would be wonderful. Probably not today, Paul, but I'm sure we can get that happening with Polycom, and
it was worth a try.
And maybe E4 VoIP at some point. Anyway, what I was going to say is that I actually had the VVX camera facing one of my screens, and I had a webcam and the screen facing the VVX, and I interfaced the two worlds that way. In other words, we had a Hangout running, and we called a SIP server, and that's the way that worked. But and it was not nearly as bad as you would imagine. So perhaps when I get the camera, I am getting a camera, am I not? Yeah, I think I am. If we get that, maybe we can try that, if nothing else. There's no good way to connect to these Hangouts because they're not SIP-based. So, anyone have any questions for Andre? It's great. He's a rare visitor here and always welcome. But anybody?
I used to be a more regular visitor, but more as a listener, right, Randy? I just the last little while, but.
Yeah, everybody approves of the VVX 600 giveaway, though. Let's start.
I'll keep that in mind.
Come on, people! You folks have all followed. Yeah, okay, Carl, because everybody's followed Polycom for years. We've all been more. I would say most people are fans of Polycom. It's really the reference for good sound. Carl, go ahead.
Yeah. So I have as you can imagine, I have a number of questions. And I'm getting some echo. I'm going to wait until I can get rid of this echo.
Okay. While you're waiting to get rid of the echo, let me just do this.
And now, here's Carl Fife with one final question. Carl?
There we go. And Andre answered, there was a question about the standard the electronic hook switch cable, and Andre said, yes, it does.
Yep. So we support all the existing partnerships that we've had for the HS, and it's the same cable connectivity. So I use my my Sennheiser and Plantronics and Jabra with the VVX 500 and 600 as well.
Waiting for Carl to get his echo.
So while we're waiting, Paul, I noticed you're in Vancouver. We're in Vancouver as well. We have a pretty big R&D office here.
Yeah, where? In Burnaby, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
in
because I used
Burnaby.
to live just down the road from it. I was like, oh, hello, that'll be handy. I'm actually downtown, right downtown in Vancouver, and I'm living
Okay.
out in Surrey. So,
Okay. Yeah.
if you
Andre,
ever need any, QA testing or any help there, give me a shout. I'll test one of those phones any day.
Yeah.
hey, Andre, before we get Carl on here, Maxim in Zurich asks about the 1500 USB support, the USB port ever supporting Plantronics Voyager. I didn't know that was an issue.
I think when we implemented the USB headsets on the VVX 500 and 600, we didn't do it on the 1500. It's something that we could probably work towards doing if it's a major issue for people. It just hasn't come up that much. Sort of looking at the 500 and 600 and making sure we evolve that as much as possible. It probably should have been done in the 1500 at the time. Yeah, but for some reason it didn't, and that's why you don't have the support for that Voyager headset there.
And is the 1500 going to stay the way I know it? That is the thing that I saw a couple of years ago, or is it going to evolve, or is it going to disappear and be replaced by the 600, or what's the future of the VVX 1500?
Yeah, the VVX 1500, it's a great phone. It's great for what it is, and we use it a lot within Polycom. Some of our partners really like it. It is expensive. It definitely is for video focused environments, whereas a 600 can be a desktop phone first and then a video conferencing device second. So the VVX 1500 still has its place, and it's still a very capable device and phone. Yeah, so it's not going anywhere. Still has a good history within Polycom, and I do see the 600 and the camera solution replacing a little bit of what people a little bit more price sensitive to get into the video conferencing. So definitely we'll see some movement there, but it'll stay around.
For people who are listening, by the way, the 1500, I should have grabbed it. I've got one over here. The 1500 has a much larger screen. How much larger? 4 times bigger, I would say, in surface?
Oh, it's not, I don't know if it's that big. I've got one on my desk here if I can pull it without messing up all my wires.
It's much bigger than the 500, but now that I look at it compared to the 600, it's actually not that much bigger.
Yeah, so it's probably, I think, a 7-inch display, and the 600 is a 4.3. A couple other things that I'll sort of share because I think it's interesting. Not everyone knows about is Polycom's done a couple of things. We brought out what's called a Polycom desktop connector, and I know that a lot of you guys may not always be running on Windows, but it's for Windows, and what it allows you to do is actually share your mouse and keyboard with the screen of the phone, so you can swipe your mouse all the way over and you get mouse keyboard activity on the phone, so you can type in URLs, you can copy paste phone numbers. It's a pretty cool little widget. It's free. If you plug your PC into the PC port of the phone, it'll detect it automatically, and it'll come up and pick it all up automatically. No configuration required. Otherwise, you do have to configure it, and that's something that's kind of neat that I like to share. Not everyone's aware of that.
That's absolutely fantastic, and I want that for the Mac, and I'm sure that anybody who's running Linux wants it for the Linux. I know Carl.
You guys hear me?
Carl, yes, Carl. I know you're dying, so let's go. Over to Carl.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. When I pulled up the Hangout, I was getting audio. I was competing with the audio through the ZipTX bridge, so I apologize. My first question was, is the 600 sort of a one-for-one replacement in terms of the target market segment as the SoundPoint 650, 670, or is this, a little bit more upmarket or more downmarket than that particular phone's niche?
Sure. So it's an interesting. Nothing's one-to-one as we replace the portfolio. What we really try to do is bring more value at lower price points. So not only is the VVX 600 a far superior phone with Gig E, touch, color display, Bluetooth, USB support, etc. than the 650 or the 670, it's priced lower. So it's not necessarily a one-to-one, but from a market segment, looking at an executive, it replaces the phone that the executive would have had and from the SoundPoint IP portfolio. But we're really trying to sort of shift the dynamic of what the value is and the definition of the phones in the portfolio for the desktop space. So it's not one-to-one, but it'll replace their phones for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it's one to more than one or something like that, given the value proposition you described.
Sure, and if you look at the way the VVX 500 is as well, right? It's sort of the upper end of the mid range, and where it's priced is around where the SoundPoint IP 560 was. So that was the Gigi variant of SoundPoint IP portfolio with 4 lines, and so you look at the VVX 500 again, with Gigi 12-line support, color, touch display. It's a far superior phone around the same price point.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So I have a couple more questions if I may.
Sure.
So one question is whether or not there's any. I know Polycom has a pretty rich history of allowing developers to kind of get in and customize the phone to their business application. But one of the things I was wondering about is whether or not the phone has the ability to kind of natively synchronize with certain kinds of native directories, whether it's LDAP or even some cloud-based directories, whether that's Google, Contact.
Yeah, so we have LDAP support, and that's part of one of the things we made free with the productivity suite. So we can do the LDAP. We're looking at some things that are more call server specific in the future. With an HTML5 based browser, you can do quite a bit, and with the API, you can do quite a bit, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do, and it may not show it that well with sort of our developer support, but we're trying to allow our partners and customers to sort of have the freedom to customize and do things themselves on the phone, and so that's what we're trying to do with the API and the browser, and we're going to be expanding it throughout the next year to sort of allow more and more integration. And obviously what Polycom wants is more people buying our phones and tighter integrations into call servers, productivity enhancement things like CRMs, and so that's what we're trying to enable with the different browser and APIs that we're doing.
Excellent, and that's a perfect answer to what I was interested in knowing. Another question, so here's kind of a practical problem we face. We have these wonderful IP 7000s in each of our conference rooms, and some users are so averse to something new that even though they're accustomed to whatever slightly different kind of phone on their desk, they sometimes can't get their head around the fact that there's a phone that's shaped like a starfish, and that they want to set up a conference and they don't know how to because they can't figure out the soft keys, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that we've sort of just sort of done out of necessity is put another phone, ironically an IP 500, right next to the IP 7000, or I guess the VVX 500 right next to the IP 7000, so that when one such user comes up and is just so much a technophobe that they can't make it work, that they can pick up the more familiar phone and work on that interface. So I was wondering if there was any, it sounds like there's lots of extensibility built into the VVX line, and one of the things that I would be curious to know is if there's extensibility for, say, the sort of dongle speakers that can be added as accessories to the IP 7000 to sort of get the far end of the table, and maybe just to completely replace the IP 7000 with a VVX, because it may just work well enough. And
so as much as I personally, since it's my portfolio, would love to see us replace a bunch of conference phones, I don't think Polycom or our investors would want us to replace our conference phone business with IP phones. And it's actually a neat feature that you're thinking about it. It's a neat idea. Something to sort of keep in mind is integration between the two, and it might just simply be that you dial from the VVX 500 and it pipes out the audio onto the 7000, and you could have some integration and synchronization there. So there's definitely something neat that I bet you could do there. I know, and you may not know this, but I used to sell Polycom phones before. I came to Polycom for about 4 years, and almost every conference phone that we did was either an ATA to their existing conference phone or a Polycom desktop phone into the conference room, and that's something that we don't encourage at Polycom, but it does work.
I do like your idea of integrating the two somehow. I'm guessing that maybe a more obvious eventuality would be bringing the gesture multi-touch interface to the conference phone, because ultimately I think that's what it's about, is making the device, making it so that you're born knowing how to use it, right? Because that's infinitely fewer clicks than one, right? as it were.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that there's people challenged with the 7000, because I thought that 7000 at least was a pretty intuitive if you used one of our analog conference phones, right? You could get up on a call without that much work. Definitely with the VVX phone, it's you just point here and dial, or just dial and hit that button that says green, go or whatever, right? So the conference phone evolution, I'm sure, will happen. I'm not too sure what the timing of that looks like yet.
Yeah, I think the lesson for everybody like on this call who's in technology is that it's impossible, absolutely impossible to overestimate how little people, the rest of the world cares about technology. And you know what I mean? So when someone walks up and sees something that's different, if they weren't born knowing how to use it, or if their muscle memory doesn't serve them, and getting that phone call set up, you could make an argument that the human factors for at least a significant part of the target market is under designed, which has been a huge surprise to me as our company has grown and sort of brought in people whose core competence has nothing to do with technology. Incredibly talented people that just have zero tolerance for tech and new things, and damn it, I want to be able to just whatever, just that kind of stuff is anyway. I think that the runaway success of the iPhone has a lot to do with that concept. If you weren't born knowing how to use it, it's too hard for the lion's share of the market. Anyway,
Carl, if I can chime in on that for just a second, to mention that there's an interesting thing about the excuse me, about the 600, and maybe this was the case of the 500 too, that these sort of iPhone-like, well, this is pretty much ubiquitous now, but when you're typing a SIP URI, there was nothing more awful than having to use the keypad, the 12 keys for that. Yeah. And the fact that the 600, I think the 500 too, could you confirm that, Andre? Was it the 500 had the virtual touch keypad as well, right?
That's right, yeah. The keyboard pops up.
Right, so the keyboard pops up, and I mean, it's like 100 times more comfortable. No exaggeration. Yeah. There's nothing worse than having to type. And by the way, this is true of old mobile phones too, where because of the limit of the number of keys, if there's no virtual keyboard, if you were going to have to type in a SIP URI, you'd be typing, like for H, you'd go through the number, and then GHI or whatever. It was horrible. You really had to want to make that call. And now that the thing pops up, it's the virtual keyboard, it's 100 times easier, much better. So that's one example of the interface, and it's pretty intuitive, except that you need to know what a SIP URI is, or an H323 or whatever. But if you're trying to do that, it's fairly easy to do.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Randy. Which is why we've honestly we've been sitting on our hands when it comes to tearing out our North Star system and upgrading. We've been sitting on our hands and waiting for this phone. Honestly, we've been waiting for this phone because it was pretty obvious to me, or at least it was my opinion, that the ultimate design of the hardware telephone was going to involve a gesture-based, capacitive touch, multi-touch user interface, and everything up to that would be a transitional technology. So I think that some people would even say that the hardware telephone is going away. I don't think so. I think that's definitely not true. I think that it's just going to morph into you know, a flexible interface like the VVX 600 has. So I really, you know, I really think that this is I haven't actually tried to get any work done with that phone, but if it's anything like the 500, I think it's a great device, and I think that it's you know, it demonstrates you know, I think it demonstrates a lot of you know, good design elements. So one question one thing I want to just kick around. It's not really a question, but it has to do with kind of the internal core processor speed and so on. And right now, today, it's like perfectly adequate, even, you know, maybe overly dimensioned for its intended application. But what I've observed in my last, you know, 20 years of IT is that the software that is required of hardware creeps into the realm of the bloated over time, and so, you know, my whatever 3 gigahertz dual core 64-bit processor, which was just 10 times faster than necessary to run Windows XP when I bought it, is you know, today is insufficient to run Windows XP because it's just, you know, with all the patches that it's received and the layers of abstraction on layers of abstraction, et cetera, on software, you know, and the new memory requirements just cause it to be sort of kind of too slow. And of course, certainly it's also, you know, not good enough for Windows 7, you know, a more demanding operating system. So the thing that that comes to mind as technologies like this move forward is whether the software load that will be demanded of phones like this will continue to creep in the way that has been true of the PC, and whether or not that will render, you know, otherwise perfectly good physical interfaces you know, less useful. Just a thought to kick around.
No. It's definitely something we think about and plan for with the phones, and you know, the life cycle of a desktop phone's a lot longer than a mobile phone, so we can't really plan in obsolescence like they do. So we plan for, you know, 5 to 10 year life cycle of the phone, whether we're going to, you know, add new features for 5 years and then continue its useful life for another 5 after that. So we have, you know, at this point, an abundance of horsepower built into the VX phones. You know, planning ahead, then the point that, you know, when we were planning, we said, hey, we'll never need all this, right? And I'm sure that in 3 or 4 years we'll find out that we did need it all, and it was a, you know, a wise decision at the time to go above what we thought we needed. So definitely that is something we accounted for in the planning, and you know, we keep a watchful eye on our code and the size of it, and you know, each feature we add, you know, running it simultaneous with something else does take up a little bit more processing power, right? And so we keep an eye on it. We track it actually pretty closely. You know, from SoundPoint IP perspective, you know, as the portfolio, at least some of the older phones aged, we had to either, you know, start limiting features, or, you know, say you can't do, you know, full expansion modules with 47 lines registered at once with shared call appearances and BLFs, and doing, you know, a 5-way conference, right? So you start limiting things, and that's what we're trying to avoid with the VVX line.
I'm guessing that problem hits you guys particularly hard, since you're fundamentally a real-time application, and you run the risk of buffer underruns and things like that, instead of just longer wait states for the end user.
Right, you can't, right? You can't increase, you can't add any time, someone waiting, trying to do a transfer. You can't, you know, have a transfer hanging for 3 seconds while an admin's trying to send a phone call, right? Or you can't have, you know, a UI not keep up with the display when you're dialing. So there's a lot of that we, you know, are very careful with it, because it is a real-time device. And that's one of the things that, you know, we talk about BYOD, we talk about soft clients. You know, it's one of the things that sort of keeps desktop phones around, is that it is, you know, an always-on device right there. You know, in VoIP, there's obviously power concerns, but you know, generally we have that going for us, and that you can always go to a phone, dial a number, and, you know, someone hopefully will pick up on the other end.
Yeah, I had a 670 right here at my desk for a period of time, and I had to repurpose it, and then I just haven't gotten around to, you know, putting replacing it. And so just for the last couple of weeks, I've been using the Brio client for Windows as my primary telephone, and I can't tell you how many times I have accidentally hung up on someone because I'll get on a phone call and I'll think, oh, this is a perfect time to reboot my computer and install those patches.
Yeah, and there's definitely a place. There's definitely a place for soft clients, and they are growing in usage, and they are getting better and better, right? So there's definitely a place, and we see the need for both, and even Polycom ourselves are coming up with our real presence mobile and real presence desktop clients, right? So we definitely see it, and we definitely see the need, but we think that the desktop phone market is going to continue to grow, and so far we've been right. So we'll hope that it continues.
I see a absolutely huge difference between soft phones and actual hardware phones, and I think that first of all, your phone. For those of us who are old enough to remember, I mean, your phone has got to always be on, and you may not always have a computer on, or maybe you need to reboot it, or maybe you're installing stuff on it. So to me, there's a divide there. I'd be curious to see if anybody else has comments on this. A lot of people use Skype and stuff like that, and it's on all day. That is absolutely not the case for me. As a matter of fact, we have Skype going to the Gigaset and going to the Polycom. I mean, I have bought channels with Skype so that'll be the case, and that way I don't have to be on Skype. Remember, you'd have to have the PC on, or the Mac, or whatever you're using, Linux, but you also have to have some kind of a client running, and it's got to be listening all the time. To me, that's a huge waste. So I definitely see the advantage of having.
So let me add to the conversation of Encounter. We see, and we're obviously a big partner of Link, and one of the things that we use in Polycom is evolving a discussion from an IM session to a call or a video. So there's definitely some benefits, and UC adoption, I think, is driving that way a little bit. I use both, and I love both, and so I see that's why I say I think there's a need and a place for both. But definitely, I love to be able to evolve an IM session into a video call or a video chat. But yeah, anyone else, I'd love to sort of hear your feedback too, because it is always something that's an education for us to hear what people are doing and seeing out there.
I wonder if Jerry has a comment, because Jerry's in all of these fields all at the same time. He's in Mac. He's got mobile. The mobile, by the way, I've got my, for example, I got my iPhone. It happens to be an iPhone. I'm not trying to do an Apple commercial here, but it could be an Android tomorrow. But I mean, I've got it sitting here, okay, and I think it's the case for just about everybody else. But if you've got SIP trunks or fixed lines of any kind, I mean, our fixed lines here in our house, which are also our company, they're all connected to, they're coming in through SIP trunks connected to DIDs, and it's the same problem. I mean, I want a phone connected to that. Anybody have an opposing viewpoint there? Anyone here sitting with a headset? Let me call on Andy. He looks like he's got his headset, and Andy, you actually are a professional on the phone. Where do those calls that I see you taking come through? Are they coming through a PC, or are they coming through a fixed line?
No, they're coming through one of several different phones, actually. To my shame, I'm still using an old Cisco 7960 for most things, but it works, and the speakerphone on it is good. So, whilst I'd love to have a Polycom, I don't actually have a reason to change it.
Maybe we can work into the next beta.
Yeah, well, that would be good.
But how many lines, Andy? Just out of curiosity, to get some typical information here. Do you have several? What do we call those? Not appearances, line appearances.
Yeah, I've got 6 on this.
Coming from what? 6 different EIDs or 6 numbers, or how does that work?
Yeah, in this case, it's actually more of a queue distribution. So there are only a couple of numbers on there, but they are distributed from a queue in a different way, depending on what the caller selects, of course.
Sure. Oh, it's just you're the same person. It's you on the other end, but they're going, for service, press 1. For support, press 2. And it's always you they get?
That's not entirely true. There are a few of us. But yes, pretty much there aren't that huge number of us. So as much as anything, it just helps identify what people are likely to want.
Okay. I know we're coming up on the hour, and Andre, presumably, like everybody else, has other things to do today. Although he's at home, so maybe he's on vacation, and we can keep him for 3 or 4 hours. But assuming that's not the case,
I wish that was the case. Yeah, I work from home a fair amount. I've got a VVX 1500 here, and I just brought my VVX 600 with the camera home. So I work from home a few days a week, and I have an office that is external to my house, and yeah, it's a nice, private, and efficient way to get work done.
well, what I was going to say is that let's take advantage of one of these rare visits from Andre. If anybody else had any questions, we'll leave some space here and make sure that you get those questions in. He's been good on IRC, and there's been a little bit of discussion there. Anyone else want to break in from ZipDX? I keep talking, hoping that you'll unmute, okay? But we're going to leave a silence here. Come in, ZipDX, or come in on the Hangout, Paul, or any of you, Jerry, if you have questions for Andre, because
yeah, I actually have a question on the shared mouse and keyboard issue.
A whole bunch of people. Go ahead, Jerry, and then that sounds like Dave after.
Not quite sure how good the volume is on my connection.
You're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Okay. On the shared mouse and keyboard you talked about that was PC only, is that, out of curiosity, did you guys implement that using Synergy on the phone?
Something like that, yeah. So same sort of protocols that the Synergy server uses, but we built it ourselves.
Okay, but you can't use an existing Synergy client to get access to it, i.e. on the Mac?
You could probably try and see what happens. I wouldn't say that wouldn't work. You may want to check the ports. We may have changed the port that it's running on. But you know, if you felt like hacking, you could spend a bit of time trying to figure that one out.
Let's do that.
I do that every now and again.
Yeah.
I've got all that running here, so let's get that happen. I can't think of anything I'd rather have than teleport working. Synergy. Is Synergy and teleport two different things, or is it the same?
They're similar.
I mentioned teleport, so yeah, I guess it's the wrong thing.
The Synergy is an open source solution.
Okay. And teleport presumably doesn't use Synergy?
I can't remember what teleport has. I think actually teleport might be just a GUI sitting on top of a Synergy binary.
Might be. It works better for me than the Synergy, straight Synergy. And I think that might have been Dave Michaels. Is that possible?
It is. It is. Hey, Andre, how you doing?
Very good, Dave. Good to hear your voice. Haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Got a question for you. The SpectraLink, I think it's the 8400. It was the only SpectraLink phone that kind of shared a common environment with the VX as far as apps, things like that.
Yep.
So now that that's spun off, is there any kind of agreement or understanding about who controls that app environment, and if those two are going to stay compatible, or there's going to be more phones from SpectraLink that are compatible with Polycom, or that kind of thing?
So what we did is we built that phone, you know, and it uses the core UC software code base. You know, part of the team that developed on the UC software code base was the SpectraLink team. So they spin off. They have their own expertise. They're going to probably branch off their own version of code. We do have an agreement, and I'm not sure, you know, what, you know.
So the integration between the wireless and the desktop and the wired wasn't that big of a market success anyway, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's really two different go-to-markets. I think there was a lot of benefits from an engineering perspective, and I think they did have some success, you know, in the market in open SIP standards as more of the, you know, the large call servers move to SIP based protocols and away from proprietary. So there's definitely some advantages that they saw there. And we're going, you know, in the right direction and away from the proprietary, so I think that benefited them. But I just mean from, you know, taking a look at our existing interop partners for the desktop phone business, you know, the alignment was quite different, but they worked towards, and I think they did a good job with it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, if everybody's done with Andre.
No. I'll try and jump in a little bit more as we get out some more phones and you know, start shipping these phones. And you know, it's a pleasure always to talk with the group. And well, you know, like I used to listen in a lot more than I have been lately. So I'll try and stop by more often. And thanks a lot for having me. Thanks
Our
for the
pleasure.
questions.
I know there are other reasons why you're busy, personal reasons as well, and that's all excellent.
Did I tell you? Yeah, we just had another baby. He's 6 weeks old now. So yeah,
I didn't want to get into
lots of
detail.
stuff going on. Yeah. That's okay. That's okay.
Fantastic.
The world can know.
Congratulations to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to turn off the broadcast here simply because it'll be so long afterwards that, and I don't think Martin can join us via video, but and Bob's back. Okay, we'll then cut the broadcast, but let me, and Martin is unmuted. Let me